Hi there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make a summer squash casserole. These are also called crooked necks, yellow crooked neck squash, and I have done another video on this squash before, but today I'm going to do a casserole and it's really delicious and it's super easy to make. And let's get started. So these are the items. We're going to use probably about 2 to 3 cups of, I'm going to use medium cheddar cheese. You can use whatever kind of cheese you want. I'm going to use a whole onion. I bought this and I realized I still had a half an onion left, so I'm probably going to use half of this and half of this because I want to use this. And I am going to put some shallots, maybe half a shallot. You don't have to, but I like to. Salt and pepper. And I'm going to use probably a teaspoon of garlic. You can use fresh garlic or this minced garlic that's really, really good. It's basically fresh and it's preserved in citric acids. So let's get started. Now what you want to do is you want to take the ends off of your squash like this. And I always choose little squash, as small as I can get, because I notice they're more tender and more flavorful, the smaller ones. So after you cut this, after you cut the ends off, you can choose to do rounds like this, probably about maybe a ½ inch. You can do that, or you can go lengthwise, or both. I'm just showing you the 2 different ways that can be done. Actually, there's more than 2 ways. I'm just showing you that you can do it any way you want, or a combination of everything. So what I started with was 6 kind of small to medium, because they're not large squash to begin with, but you know, I didn't weigh it or anything, but it's about 5 or 6 squash. Okay, next what we're going to do when we're done cutting these is we're going to saute our onions until they're soft and translucent. And then after that, we'll salt and pepper our squash and add it in and just soften it up. You want to get 2 or 3 tablespoons of oil in a pan. And it doesn't matter what kind of oil. So I have a combination of olive oil and some bacon grease, because I have bacon grease. And those of you who are familiar with my cooking, you know I love bacon grease. It gives everything more flavor. So we're going to add our onions and we're going to saute them probably about 3 or 4 minutes, just till they're translucent. Okay, next I'm going to add salt, and I'm not measuring it, probably maybe a teaspoon. I'm guessing, it might even be less, could be a ½ teaspoon. I'm just salting it well because it's going to be cooked and it will absorb a lot of the salt. And some cracked pepper, any kind of pepper. So I'm just basically salt and peppering this. Just about like that. So now we're going to add this to our translucent onion. Okay, so here are our onions, nice and translucent. So I'm going to add all the squash after I salt and pepper it. And then I'm going to saute this before I bake it, because this is going to bake, it's a casserole. But before I bake it, I want to soften these. And the purpose of all this is to give it more flavor. You always want to saute everything beforehand, because it does give it more flavor, but also we want to soften the squash. So I have my stove on like a medium low, not high, just a medium low. Let it just absorb on its own. There'll be a lot of liquid that comes out of here, and we are going to remove some of the liquid because we don't want a soupy casserole. But we would keep the liquid in if we were going to just cook it on the stove and not make a casserole. The juice is awesome. But for a casserole, you don't want it soupy. So I'm going to continue to cook this on low until they're soft. While we're cooking our squash on the stove, we're going to grate some cheese. And like I said, you can use whatever kind of cheese you like. I love cheddar. And this is a medium cheddar. So I would say 2 to 3 cups of cheese. And then this is preference too. If you like lots and lots of cheese, you grate as much as you want. We're going to have layers like you would do a lasagna. We're going to layer. So I'm going to continue to grate this, probably 2 or 3 cups. Okay, here's our squash. It's soft. It's not all the way cooked, and it could get softer, but it's going to bake for a total of 40 minutes. So this casserole dish is 10 by 10 inches, and you can use a 9 by 13, you can use an 8 by 8 or a 9 by 9, whatever you want, depending also on how much squash. If you don't have a lid like I do, you can cover it with foil. But what we're going to do now is we're going to layer our squash. And one thing I forgot to do, and I'm going to do it right now, is I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. I forgot to. I wanted to do it on the stove, but like a teaspoon or a tablespoon, something like that. Whatever your preference is. And I'm just going to kind of, since I didn't put it in before, I'm just going to kind of stir it up, which is fine. It doesn't matter. And I didn't cook this thoroughly all the way through, so it's not real soupy. So I don't have to worry about draining it because it's not real soupy, which is kind of nice. Because if it was, I would be draining all the soupiness out of it, all the liquid. But here I really don't have to. So what you want to do is you want to put your squash on the first layer like this, and your onions. And I did get 4 cups of cheddar cheese. And then you want to layer the second layer with cheese, just like you would a lasagna. Same idea. So that's what we're doing. We're going to layer it. And this is hot, but there we go. And sometimes you might have 2 layers, sometimes you might have 3 or 4. It just depends on how much of everything, how much squash you made. It's all depending on that. So put another layer. And then I'll do my last squash. There we go. So now we're going to add the rest of the cheese. I'm going to leave a little bit more for the last 10 minutes when I remove the lid. So right now I'm going to bake this at 350 degrees with either foil, or I happen to have a lid for my casserole dish, but if you don't, you just put foil on top of it. It's going to go in for 30 minutes at 350. This is optional, but I am going to add a little bit of smoked paprika, which I meant to do before I put it in. Just a little. Okay, the 30 minutes are up. So we're going to add more cheese, and then we're going to cook it another 10 minutes with the lid off. There it is, nice and cheesy. You can see all the squash. That looks really good. It's super hot, so we're going to have to let this set a good 10 minutes. Doesn't that look delicious? Nice and cheesy and really good. So we're going to give this a taste. let's give this a try. It's still hot, but it's very cheesy. And the squash is cooked just right. It's not mushy. It's just perfect. Mmm. Perfect. Cheesy, flavorful, and just the perfect bite to it. So if you want a really good side dish, this is perfect. These are available all summer. So I hope you give this a try, and I hope it turns out great.